Shipton, England, March 8, 1944. We will now join the 44th Bombardment Group as they prepare for one of the early raids on Berlin. The commander of the group at the time was Colonel Leon Johnson. We will hear commentary from General Johnson as he shares his recollections with us.
In the winter there, we're doing more bombing. The winters are fairly long in England. And it was pretty miserable out there working for the ground crews, certainly. Even in short missions, it seemed you were up around 4 or 5 in the morning and briefing your crews very early because of the fact that we generally took off fairly early. See that they're doing changing engines and fixing propellers and all. A lot of that had to be done outside in very cold weather. Here we go. They're starting number 3 on that one to warm it up. If I remember correctly, number 3 was the one that carried the auxiliary power to run the energy equipment inside the airplane. The taxiways were not very wide, and as you taxied out, it was very important to stay on that taxiway because if you got one wheel off, you're in the mud and the whole mission could be damaged. There we go. I was amazed how well that people were doing it. The lack of experience that these crews had, and how they came over there. In no time at all, they were veterans and were handling the planes that, well, I think of it, handling them remarkably well, much better than could have been expected or hoped for. But they get lined up. This looks to be they're taxiing closely behind each other to get out to the end of the runway and taking off in about 30-second intervals. Time enough to get a little crosswind to get the turbulence out of the air, or off the runway anyway, as you went out. In the winter months, there's sometimes a little ice on the runway. And the ice also would get on the wings of the airplane. And I remember the fence that we've just seen there in this mission. People barely cleared the trees and the fence. And the runway, I think, was around 6,000 feet. I forgot exactly the distance. But they don't have too much to play with. They take off and start circling, and as time wore on, we had an assembly aircraft, and we'd join up with that. It was painted like a zebra or some distinctive number because there were so many aerodromes about 6 miles apart that it was almost impossible when you first got up to tell which is your group and which is some other group. You go up and it was striped like a zebra or painted some unusual color so you could see it. You started forming up, you knew where you were supposed to be, your position in the flight, so you could form as you were supposed to, and circle until you had your group formed. And then after you had your group formed, as they're circling here in your picture, well, then you had to put your group in the proper formation of the other groups so that you could go out of a whole trail or train of airplane heading out of England, heading out over the Channel to go to Germany or France or whatever direction, even somewhere up towards Norway and all. Well, that control tower, I may be in that picture because I was on that control tower many times. The group formed up to get off. Most of us felt it pretty essential to at the group to see that it got off properly. As time went on, after September of 43, I had 3 groups, and so I would try to make one of them each morning each time a mission was brief, go to one or the other to see that it got off and keep contact with them. These are forming up. We wanted to get them a little closer to the mat normally because it made it easier to form, and as you went in enemy territory, you certainly wanted to close in because you had a compact formation. Why, the fighters would see you, and they would, if you had a good tight formation, they'd leave you alone and go to someone who had a weak formation where they could come through and get a straggler of some kind and shoot him down. Now those contrails were just unbelievable. You had those. Of course, anybody could identify where the airplanes were with the contrails. But we made them practically all year. In the winter, I guess, they're a little lower, and in the summer, maybe we didn't get so many, but I remember so many times the contrails were there, and the fighters could come up through along the contrails, but mostly they were above that dive down in. Most of the time, when you first picked them up, they were coming in from about 4 or 5 o'clock or 7 or 8 o'clock, but sometimes after much experience, they started coming on almost level with you from the nose as time went on, trying to fly towards the lead aircraft and then go under it or under the wing, some of the wings, to try to break up the formation and then work on the stragglers. So the Canning War didn't think flak was too dangerous because we would much rather face the flak or see it bursting there than face the fighters come in who could maneuver and ready to do you great damage or shoot you down. But as time went on, the flak got heavier and heavier, and over these flak concentrations along the coast and all, we took a great deal of battle damage. We could handle quite a bit of damage. Come home with some flak holes and all, and they weren't too severe. They had to hit something critical to really put you out of it. But as I say, as the flak got heavier and heavier, they hit more critical parts. So that flak, I didn't like the looks of that. I wanted to be in that bomber. That was breaking, so it could damage you. Oh, they had tin foil we dumped out there to deflect the radar, but I don't think that is what did we call that? Anyway, we dump it all over the place so the radars could not, German radar couldn't pick us up, couldn't read through the flak to see our formations. Well, you see that you have to have a steady run for 30 seconds and make your bombs work, so it was developed over a period of time that you could not get accurate bombing by flying formation and things. So I think May was the first one came up with the idea of dropping on the lead bomber. So as time wore on, each squadron head would go over, and when the lead bomber toggled off one, they would all bomb. And so you watch the lead bomber, and he got on the target where the rest of them are pretty close to the target. For camouflage, we had the green in England, but when we went to the desert, well, we wanted the brown down there, and they had a camouflage, desert camouflage on it. But so we were on loan to North Africa, where it's rather noticeable. Airplanes are all painted quite differently than the ones that were flying out of the desert. And then we had so much bad weather there, it's hard to find your base, but they had radio signal points that you crossed, like orient yourself very well. But when we got ready for D-Day, we were practicing the night before and all, and you would go I think it was 2 minutes north, 2 minutes west, 2 minutes south, 2 minutes east, and go around that just sort of a racetrack so you didn't run into someone else's group, because the bases are only 5 to 10 miles apart there, and you got up at night we were practicing and with our running lights on, and it looked as if 1,000 airplanes were just coming right at you, but actually if you stayed in your path, I don't remember any of them crashing into others, although you're almost certain that you're all in a collision course.
On November 19, 1943, the 44th Bomb Group received an assignment to conduct a raid on an airfield near Oslo, Norway. Lieutenant Griffin, pilot of one of the returning aircraft, was attacked by enemy fighters and sustained heavy damage. Upon return, the tower ordered Lieutenant Griffin to have his crew bail out and to take the aircraft out to sea to ditch it. His co-pilot was seriously wounded and unable to jump, so he decided to bring the aircraft in. The plane's hydraulic system had been seriously damaged and was only able to lower the left landing gear. He miraculously executed a safe landing.
By the end of 43, we had a pretty good force going at that time. We built up, I went there January the 3rd of 43, and we had very few airplanes and no replacements coming in. So we lost a crew. It was pretty horrible. Yeah, that's rather interesting, really. No one hurt, everyone. Maybe someone hurt in the airplane, just quite figured, yeah, if someone had crash land that way, they had damage aboard at the same time. That was neatly done on that. I think that we had a little more breakup than the B-17s on this, because they had a monocoque type fuselage, and you notice the Liberator is sort of a slab-sided fuselage. So you didn't have the strength in the structure itself that you had, in my opinion anyway, as you had the B-17. So we took a little more losses, but that chap brought that in so neatly, I don't think there could have been much damage to the crew. Some of them came back very, very badly damaged, and you wonder how they got home. Standing at the hard stand where they're going to park, the crew waited patiently, and they were awfully disappointed when the ground crews were waiting there for their ship to come in, and no one came back to their taxi stand. It was a big blow to them, because the crews and the ground crews are very close to each other. They had to be. They worked together. But Obviously, I don't remember all details. I mean, we flew so many. And we got to having up to 100 airplanes. Toward the end of 44, we had up to 100 airplanes in each group. And I had 3 groups under my command. So the crews are coming in and going out so fast, I never got to know them like I did when we had only about 25 airplanes and no replacements coming in. To get them on the stretcher and get them over the hospital as quickly as you could. But I never could get used to how courageous these young fellows were and how they handled the airplanes and put their lives on the line so many, many times. And willingly, it seems. They didn't enjoy the mission. I never knew anyone that enjoyed a mission, but they knew they had to be done and they were willing to do it. Take off at dawn or land at dusk. The missions, I think, probably average 4 to 6 hours in duration on running to the continent and back. The longer mission might take a couple of hours longer.
Here we see Colonel Johnson debriefing Colonel Fred Dent, who led the 14th Combat Wing on this mission. Among the other officers we see here are Colonel Gibson, Lieutenant Callner, and Major Call. materials depicted here were photographed under the direction of Captain Ursel Harvell, who later became the 44th Bomb Group photographic officer. Thus ended the 100th mission of the 44th Bomb Group, March 8, 1944. The target was Berlin.